This is 1480 KRAE Cheyenne.
Also being heard on translator K266CC Cheyenne at 101.1 FM.
It's time now for something new for you. It's KRAE Reports, a week in review. And now let's check in with our program right here on 1480 KRAE Cheyenne. Good morning. Welcome to KRAE Reports, a week in review. And for us, a week in review, we're going to get a chance today to find out what's going on at the state capitol. We'll have a state representative from House District 43, Dan Zwonitzer, joining us here in just a few moments. Matter of fact, Dan represents our part of the city of Cheyenne, pretty much south and central Laramie County. So we'll get his takes on a lot of things. We'll ask him a lot of questions. Matter of fact, Dan has been, I think he was first elected back in 2004. So again, 10 consecutive terms now that he's
been at it for a while, without a doubt. So again, we'll have him in. He'll be on his way over, at least again here in a few short minutes, to join us on the at least program for today, including having Representative Zwonitzer in studio with us. Again, we'll talk plenty about legislative session going on right now here in 2023. A lot of bills being proposed on both the House and Senate side, especially with Dan has proposed a few at least bills, also to Representative Bouchard as well too on the Senate side. We'll get into that, but plenty to talk about on what's happening and affecting the state. Again, kind of on the legislative side, but you wanted to bring up quickly one bill that or at least one story that I brought up, again, regarding something that's been affecting Wyoming for quite some time, or at least it's been kind of a hotbed issue, is regarding railroad workers and just, again, the situation with our coal industry and just revenues from, again, the pending strikes that were supposed to happen with Union Pacific and all that. It sounds like in 2022, with all the tumultuous action between, again, coal and, again, trying to get this transported out of the state of Wyoming, seems like coal industry, because of our train system and, again, with all this worker shortage and all that, again, the lack of trains has really caused at least kind of money to be a little tighter in the coal industry here in the state of Wyoming.
Well, you know what, and here's the funny part. You always chuck it back towards Washington, D.C. Because, again, go green, go green. And, the coal industry here in Wyoming, again, rich. We are rich in minerals, natural gas, and again, every time Washington, D.C., and again, I'm just going to use this current administration. Every time they open their mouth, it's bad news for the rest of the country. And last year in 2022, realizing that they had screwed up back in the District of Criminals, they allowed Wyoming to mine more coal, because, again, the country, not just Wyoming, but the country benefits from Wyoming coal. And we were able to tap into a plentiful resource here in Wyoming, mine the coal, and then it just sat because of labor shortages. Let's just call it labor shortages.
You're trying to blame at least Fed, and again, obviously, again, as we're trying to move away from kind of fossil fuels, without a doubt, or at least that's kind of been the push of recent. Again, this more in 2022, the lack of revenue, especially at least affecting the coal industry here in the state of Wyoming, was more so of something we've talked about with the Union Pacific, with BNSF, that, again, it's more of that labor shortage, the lack of trains to get that production moving on those lines out of the state of Wyoming to power plants throughout this entire nation that, again, still use that coal resource. But that was kind of the more issue, is more so of Union Pacific, BNSF, again, all these these employees, again, or lack thereof employees, again, not getting those trains, not getting it shipped out, not getting these full train carts moving out of the state of Wyoming. So, again, this is not so much a federal issue, as more so of Union Pacific and BNSF, I guess, takes some part of the blame, just due to the fact that, again, we're still having this worker shortage that's been ongoing since the pandemic, and it's starting to affect and kind of ripple on down to, again, now affecting, Wyoming's kind of massive, at least, revenue getter, again, with the coal industry here.
Wyoming supplies about 80% of the nation's thermal coal, which powers about 25% of the total U.S. electrical generation. So, anytime that the coal has to sit, and again, let's look back when we had that coal spill back in December, and this story, obviously courtesy of the Cowboy State Daily. You know, I can't even tell you how much money we lost. And again, when coal trains are sitting, you can't mine anymore. So again, you talk about a ripple effect. No trains, no coal, no workers. And again, too, lost revenue to the state of Wyoming. And again, let's look at what the mineral industry does, especially now with our legislature being in session. And I'm sure Dan will be able to, expand on what our minerals do for our budgets. So when you, and again, too, correct me if I'm wrong, the mineral industry here in Wyoming has been very significant in a lot of our schools.
Yeah.
Providing that type of revenue to fund our schools, fund our kids, various projects. Again, $100 million, Nick, is a lot of cabbage.
It's a big lost revenue without a doubt. Again, we'll see what this kind of ripple effect does. Again, we've talked about that ripple effect, especially stemming from 2020 of the pandemic, of what are funds going to look like as we move forward to 23, 24, 25, school districts as well. Again, we've talked whether, again, having superintendents in or, again, athletic directors in of, hey, it is a concern of not so much here and now, but again, what does the future hold as, again, we try to improve our schools, we try to improve infrastructure, we try to add sports. Again, it all costs money here in the state. But again, outside of this revenue that is lost for the state of Wyoming, also too does affect the average Joe citizen, especially here within the state border, where again that lack of coal, or at least the movement of coal, and again, it's also too getting produced and moved within this state's borders to our various power plants. But again, if power plants can't supply or at least have that issue to keep those plants going with the lack of coal, you got to switch over to natural gas, and
that's
again,
costly.
that's costly, and again, it adds to, again, what is inflation with the cost of living right now, which again is oh so high. It's a big problem that hopefully in 23, even though again there's no indication that from either of the rail companies, again whether it's Union Pacific or BNSF, that again they're going to kind of pump up production or at least pump up at least the amount of trains, because again that requires workers. There still is no solution on how do we make this better, and again how do we avoid this problem in 2023, because as of right now it seems like it could be a continuous problem here in 23, especially where we look at to the winter storms that also to affect the movement of trains. Mm-hmm. It seems like again we're going through I don't want to say an unusual winter, but again, it's a very cold and it's a very, at least kind of moisture-heavy winter. Again, look what happened here over the past week. Again, 7 inches of snow here in the city of Cheyenne. Other parts of the Cowboy State getting hit pretty hard as well, too. Again, this winter a little bit more heavier than seems like kind of years past, which might affect even more here in 23.
Well, the math is pretty simple. Mines don't get paid until the coal leaves, which means if they can't leave the mine, they have to stop producing coal. So again, we talk about not even trickle down, but just the downfall of every piece of the machinery has to work. And you mentioned about natural gas. Think about natural gas during a cold period of time that we've gone through this. And again, I think this is a normal year for us as far as coal is concerned. When you don't have coal, you got to use natural gas. Natural gas does increase in price when the colder months are here. And again, we're going to be in the colder months up until at least mid-March, early April. So they got to pull their heads out. Again, Union Pacific, BNSF, the various mines that we have here in Wyoming. Also, too, let's not forget ag producers also getting hit by this as well, too. They need to get their stuff out to market.
Yeah, again, obviously we focus on the coal industry because, again, that holds very, at least heavy here in the state of Wyoming, especially with a good chunk of revenue for the Cowboy State. But, again, yes, with the train issue with both of these, again, it seems like it's affecting all kind of railway companies. But it does affect other businesses, again, whether it is transporting, again, you look to Union Pacific transporting into F.E. Warren for, again, military equipment, military vehicles. Again, it affects agriculture. It affects coal, as we're seeing, again, refrigerated goods, again, potentially cars. Again, there's a lot that goes and gets freighted on these trains across this country, again, just with that unique structure that we built so long ago. It does have this massive ripple effect. Again, we more kind of focus on the coal side because, again, it is a big chunk of revenue. It also, too, as again, going back to your earlier point, again, regarding the Fed, of yes, there is that push to go green and get away from the fossil fuels, but as we see coal, especially here, and we realize it as Wyoming citizens, it is still a necessity. It's still something that we need until that ultimate solution, or we can kind of cut it off and go, hey, here, all right, let's step away from coal. We still need it, and again, this kind of proves of how much it is in value to, again, citizens, but also to, again, to the state of Wyoming, where, again, we'll see what happens regarding the revenue and what all it affects moving forward.
Well, and I think you're forgetting the main point about coal. It's our biggest export to the country. And again, we got to get the coal from point A to point B, and again, we are looking at a situation here when things were going well, and you use the word pandemic, up until 2020. Again, all pieces were in place: coal, train, delivered, paid, money's coming back to the state of Wyoming. And again, it doesn't matter which administration was in play in the Fed side.
Was the previous administration a little bit more friendly to, again, our coal industry? Yeah, I think plain and simple that is something to agree upon. Again, Biden has kind of gone back and said, hey, we're not going to just shut down these coal mines, or again, just
He's
shut down.
walked it back.
Yeah, again, still that push to go green, but it's realizing of, hey, we still need this necessity. But again, right now, this is something very concerning. And then, again, as we talk about that lack of revenue, again, $100 million was kind of estimated in 2022 of loss for the state of Wyoming. Again, it brings up the question of, and again, as we'll talk about the Wyoming legislature, as again, they got to look at that fiscal budget year in and year out. What does it mean? What are we cutting? Where are we going to find this additional?
Where are we going to tighten the belts?
Where are we going to find this additional $100 million, if at all, to help out? Again, go to resources that depend upon it here in the state. And that is kind of the big concern.
And you think back to the pandemic, and when we got back into business, and the next year, state agencies across the board were cutting.
Yeah.
Not so much laying off, but hey, we're going to have to absorb a 10% cut. To balance the budget, and that's one of the things too. When the legislature gets together, they got to balance.
You said
the budget.
Cuts again. Look what happened here, just alone in the city of Cheyenne. Back, again at the start of the pandemic, or at least kind of near that beginning portion. Where again, look at all the city jobs that were lost. Where again, even the city of Cheyenne had to cut back just due to the lack of funds. We do know, again, talking through various superintendents across the state of Wyoming, that again, schools did have to cut back a little bit. Again, there wasn't anything desperate or at least kind of disastrous, but again, you did see that, hey, regarding, for instance, again, on the athletics, on bus trips, hey, we're going to try and pair you. Again, we're going to have to save on fuel costs some way, shape, or form. On trips, again, whether it's athletics, field trips, all this, again, we're going to have to kind of combine efforts, or kind of take a step back from kind of the unnecessary travel that was, available to us in years past. So that's kind of what you're seeing. But again, you look as more and more of these stories come out, again, of the lack of revenue heading towards the state of Wyoming, it becomes more and more concerning of what is it going to look like. Again, obviously we're feeling the effects right now here as we move into 2023, but again, it's more that ripple effect of 24, 25 as you try to play catch up and get back these lost monies.
Well, and again, too, what you were mentioning, like on athletics, a lot of that's still in play today. It was like, hey, we got to save every nickel we can.
Yeah.
Because again, we just don't know what the future holds. And again, we hear from economists all over the place that this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But realistically, Wyoming and its legislature, whether it's the Senate and the House, I should say, both of them. You also look at with the governor's office. You have to look ahead, not just to tomorrow, but a couple of years into the future and see what's going on. So if the country is suffering as a whole, we might be spared that. And usually we're spared by about 3 to 6 months if the country is suffering, the bigger metro areas. But that's the point. You have to plan for right now. I don't want to say devastation, but you have to plan for that rainy day, because it looked like the rainy days already started when you lost $100 million. Because again, think back to when and I'm talking about our little small company, when we had to suffer through the pandemic, and then we still haven't fully recovered. We're talking almost 3 years now, Nick, that we have lost some revenue because some mom and pops decided, hey, not going to come back.
Yeah.
So this is what the government here of Wyoming has to look at. Hey, could we be faced with more train shortages?
The hopeful thing is and something that, again, kind of stems with Governor Gordon, again, also to the legislative body, both at least Senate and House. Again, that's why they're elected to their positions, to kind of figure this stuff out, or at least kind of find solutions, again, and whoever comes on, again, to at least look at, again, economics, or, again, the treasury of the state. But, it's something that hopefully, again, as we're seeing in Cheyenne, again, some small businesses did go out, but again, you're starting to see influx of newer small businesses come back, kind of fill that downtown, or again, fill out the city of Cheyenne, that you're starting to see kind of that revitalization. It's a slow process, and yes, some businesses are going to be vastly affected for many years to come, but again, it's a slow, at least here in Cheyenne, what we're noticing, it's a slow progress forward of, all right, things are going back to normal, if not getting better, and again, it's kind of a positive outlook. Hopefully that's the same with the state of Wyoming, where, again, they're looking to, again, bringing in new businesses, corporations, looking at, again, alternatives where, again, we look at with the wind farms, we look at, again, utilizing a lot of land space to at least occupy, again, for reservoirs, for, again, I guess plain and simple for the wind farms, again, hopefully it's something that Wyoming as a whole, and again, part of this legislator, again, not saying they need to find a quick answer now, but they need to figure something out. It's something of, what can we do to kind of bolster, or at least prevent this, or at least have that nice nest egg in some shape or form, to not kind of wholeheartedly depend on coal.
Here's the easiest thing, and this is something we'll have to ask.
Because obviously, again, it seems like you're going to have to look to that future, as there is a heavy push right now, especially regarding our mining industry here in the state of Wyoming. Again, there are at least that kind of vocal half of the country, and it kind of feels like a vocal half that is saying, hey, no more fossil fuels. We need to look to the future. And again, that's kind of the same where right now you got to imagine that the state of Wyoming's got to get on that process where we might be held in the back, where no one wants coal, or we have no use for coal, and we're just sitting on this and going, what do we do?
Here's the deal. You mentioned the city. Typically, the city has about a 3-month rainy day account. For the state, I don't know how long that is, but you have to put stuff away.
Yeah.
But when you get $100,000 shortfall, $100 million shortfall, obviously that dips into the rainy day account. So again, like I said, talking with our representatives, we'll find out exactly if there is that type of rainy day account for the state of Wyoming. We will talk with Dan Zwonitzer. He's the state representative of District 43, and we will chat with him coming up after this break right here on 1480 KRAE.
1480 KRAE is your home for live play-by-play coverage of high school basketball and football. To hear all the play-by-play calls of East, Central, and South football and basketball. You'll hear the conference action along with the postseason, and during the basketball season, 1480 KRAE features both boys and girls games. Catch all the exciting calls on AM 1480 KRAE, also streaming the games worldwide on the web at 1480KRAE.com.
There may be a chill in the air, but the action is always hot and heavy at the 3 locations of Wyoming Downs in the Cheyenne Plaza, inside the Outlaw Saloon on the South Greeley Highway, and on Delridge Boulevard next to Culver's Office Depot. You can watch and place your pari-mutuel wager on a variety of simulcast horse races from the nation and the world's tracks, and check out the excellent selections of games offered by Wyoming Downs, where you can win a lot of cash. Remember to pick up your player's card and enjoy Triple Points Monday and Club 55 midweek, along with other specials. Win big today and bring your friends to Wyoming Downs in the Cheyenne Plaza inside the Outlaw Saloon on the South Greeley Highway and at 1345 Delrange Boulevard. For more information, go to wydowns.com.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
So today's your 18th birthday. Hey, Bobby, pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah. I've got my whole life ahead of me. School, then a job. I've been waiting for this day forever.
And when will you be registering with Selective Service?
What? Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'll get around to it someday.
Someday?
Yeah, you know, like, whenever I get around to it, like, I don't know.
Well, Bobby, if you don't register with Selective Service within 30 days of your 18th birthday, you can lose out on college loans, job training, and government jobs. And then you'll be, you know, like out of luck.
Bobby, where are you going?
I'm just gonna get online for a minute, then I'll be right back.
To register with Selective Service, log on to www.sss.gov or stop by your local post office.
There. Are you happy now?
Very.
Attention! This is a public notice from the Social Security Disability Helpline. If you're one of the millions of Americans who are disabled and unable to work, you may be eligible for disability benefits from Social Security. Receiving benefits is your right. If you suffer from physical or mental disability, whether you're applying for the first time or you've already been denied, we can help. We'll evaluate your situation and deal with Social Security on your behalf. Best of all, there's no fee until you receive your benefits. Remember, we only get paid if you win your case. There are many reasons and conditions that may make you eligible for disability benefits. Many of them you may not be aware of. So if you're disabled and unable to work, call now to get started with your free, no-obligation consultation.
800-797-0711. 800-797-0711. 800-797-0711. That's 800-797-0711.
Hi, it's Lee at Absolute Flooring. It's time to put 2022 behind us and get 2023 off to a great start. The best way to do that is with new flooring from Absolute Flooring. With a large variety of flooring products and a multitude of styles, colors, and prices, your new floor awaits you. And with the best in installers, get your new year started off right with a stop at Absolute Flooring in the Cheyenne Plaza and at AbsoluteFlooringWIO.com. Remember, it's always your home, your floor, your store, absolutely.
Check out the huge savings this week at Town & Country Supermarket Liquors. Here are just a few of the terrific weekly specials. It's your one-stop to shop for these Super Radio buys heard only right here. Reina de la Muerte Blanco Tequila, 750 milliliter bottle, $39.99. Tecate or Tecate Light, 12-pack, 12-ounce cans, $12.99. And Tanqueray Orange Seville Gin, 750 milliliter bottle, $19.99. Town & Country Supermarket Liquors on the South Greeley Highway, Cheyenne's low-price leader.
Hop into the KRAE Time Machine each Monday through Thursday for the golden age of radio, featuring famous radio classics such as Jack Armstrong and Suspense Theater, along with pioneers in the entertainment industry like Bob Hope and Abbott and Costello, along with many other performers who've captured our ears many, many years ago. Join us for the golden age of radio Monday through Thursday, 8 until 10 p.m. on 1480 KRAE, also 101.1 FM, and you can also stream all of our programming on 1480krae.com.
Here's the latest weather forecast on 1480 KRAE.
Weather-wise for today, mostly cloudy. Expect a daytime high near 27. Mostly cloudy for tonight, low down to 12 degrees. Tomorrow, Tuesday, partly sunny with patchy blowing snow in the morning. We're calling for a daytime high near 28, and for Tuesday night, a mostly cloudy night with our low down to 14 degrees.
And we welcome you back to KRAE Reports, a week in review. I'm Larry Perotti, along with Nick Perotti. We bring on our first guest, and matter of fact, he and his family go back a long way. I know since I've been here in 1986, Western Auction, Z's Home Furnishings, and now, Son and Pops all representing the state of Wyoming. So it's kind of a neat deal. Dan Zwonitzer joins us. Matter of fact, out of our district, because we are in East Cheyenne. So again, you have a lot of territory, south central Laramie County, southeastern portion. Let's talk about how far your district encompasses.
Well, sure. Thanks, Nick, for having me. District 43, which I represent now, 19th year. It basically elementary schools are Sunrise Elementary, Saddle Ridge, and then out on camp still by the Hereford Ranch area is my district after redistricting this past year.
You know, Dan, and it's funny that you mentioned 19 years because, again, you get elected
It's been a while.
and you get reelected 9 times. So that's kind of a tribute to what you have done, whether good, bad, or different. But again, too, you know it as well as I do. Politics is a dirty game. You get labeled as X. You know, I'll use the word. You're a Republican. You get labeled as Rhino. How do you convince the electorate that I'm there in the legislature representing you, voting the way our district should be represented? How do you convince our voters to bring you back time and time again?
I think door to door and being active in the community is what's really helped for me. And obviously, 5th generation family here in Cheyenne has been beneficial growing up here, and representing part of the area that I grew up in because I went to East and KRAE, and then just door to door talking to people. Right, Cheyenne's not it's a 60,000 people, but it's still a small town. On the community stuff, the people you meet, and I know a lot of my constituents. It was a little difficult this past session because about 42% of my district is brand new. I got all of Saddle Ridge, and so meeting a lot of those people and getting to talk to them and introducing myself for the first time. And a lot of them have moved here in the past 5 or 6 years. It seems to be kind of a growing area east of town with a lot of people are newer to Cheyenne, and so that incumbency stuff doesn't really help. Especially this past cycle, the Cheney-Hageman battle, right? That I think it impacted and influenced elections throughout Wyoming, and so that was the major question on the doors this year was, are you a Hageman supporter, a Cheney supporter, all of the above, none of the above, right? It was, that was the about only question that I think mattered in the primary when I was doing doors in my district was what's going on at the federal level. And that's just a surprise. The last 15 years or state issues, state politics, but it seems this cycle, the federal government issues were the #1 priority of Wyomingites.
It definitely took a big, at least nationwide and worldwide stage, especially that battle happening here in the state of Wyoming, which on the general election side did kind of seem like it did affect some, at least of those, at least processes where again votes kind of, at least voters really didn't turn up as high as we were hoping here in the state of Wyoming. But anyways, as we bring you in, Representative Zwonitzer, where again we are in the heated battle, or at least I would say the heated session of Legislature, where even though we're taking a day off here today, but for you kind of brought up some interesting bills. Let's kind of get into the meat of it right now of our conversation for today. Right now, House bill that you brought up, I do believe the House bill number 7, the at least marriage, and again, it's more underage marriage bill that kind of addresses of boosting up that age range, or at least kind of setting that, I do believe, to the age of 18. Let's talk about you kind of bringing that bill to legislative session.
Yeah, and so certainly the bill is what we call an old friend to the legislature. It's been brought twice before me. It was part of, I think, the Me Too movement from 5 years ago, and many states in the past decade have upped their marriage age. And so we're down to 8 states that have no minimum age for marriage, including Wyoming. And so the bill, it does set the minimum age at 16. We prefer 18, but we understand there are situations where 16 and 17-year-olds need to and should get married. And there's stipulations in the bill for parental consent, or if not, go before a district judge. Our current marriage statute allows district circuit magistrates, clerks of court, religious ministers to marry people. And so I didn't want to step on anyone's religious liberty, but I do think it's important to make a statement that we shouldn't have any of our kids getting married under the age of 16. And so that was really the floor. And it only got 38 votes. 25 of my colleagues still said we shouldn't intertwine religion and government. But I do think it's a strong policy statement. More and more states are setting that minimum age, and if we're the last one standing, we don't want people coming to Wyoming to marry kids.
I guess kind of, at least if, with this amendment coming, where if it, again, if it were to fail or anything like that, what is the current state law regarding underage marriage? Again, for instance, as we talk about kind of the teenagers, and we've seen that again with Utah, state of Wyoming, where again, circumstances doesn't happen, religious reasons as well too, kind of at least bring up those situations. But is it something that current state law here in the state of Wyoming, again, a 30-year-old man can marry a 18 or an underage person? Let's go into what is currently state law here in Wyoming.
Yeah, so in 2022, we just got the numbers, and we had 20 underage marriages in Wyoming. And some of them were 20-year-olds and 16-year-olds. But when we started, we saw, I think, 8 of them. We looked at just 16-year-olds. married a 25-year-old, a 28-year-old, a 32-year-old. We have had 2 instances in the past decade of 14-year-olds getting married. And we had an instance in Teton County last year where a 60-year-old man came in with a 16-year-old girl, and the 16-year-old girl said, yes, I want to marry him. And there wasn't really anything in the statutes that could prevent that. And so, and I don't want to make judgment calls on anyone's marriage or relationships, but the big major issue Wyoming is also dealing with is human trafficking along I-80. And there are just weird loopholes in our marriage statutes, regarding underage relations and underage rape. If you have a marriage, right, you get exempted from some of those. And so we don't want any child sex trafficking through our state. And I think it's just a good policy to set that floor, not trying to trample on anyone's religious liberties. But I hope in 2023 we can agree that no one under the age of 16 should be able to get married.
Human trafficking, which again does affect, especially here, as we know from the Cheyenne Police Department, again with I-25, I-80, that kind of corridor, that again, it's a ongoing issue here in, again, the state of Wyoming, but specifically here in the city of Cheyenne. But again, as we look towards that bill, again, as that moves forward right now, again, something else I want to bring at least forward to you that, again, I don't want to say it was kind of topic of controversy, but again, it did make kind of nationwide news, so to speak, especially seeing it on Yahoo and various sites. But regarding at least the anti-COVID bill to an extent, where again it was regarding mass vaccines, kind of the mandates regarding companies here in the state of Wyoming, or at least kind of government bodies of trying to pass that forward. You in charge, at least the chairman of the House Labor, at least committee, I don't want to say you poo-pooed it, but again, at least in the quote that came from this article, according to Yahoo News, it was more so of, hey, okay, this is fine and dandy, but we got other things that were kind of more important. Let's talk about that, just that bill and just kind of the focus on that.
So a little bit of the background. We actually have had more people elected this cycle than at any time since 1992 when we did redistricts. So this is the largest freshman class that we've had in Wyoming since we've done districting. And many of them campaigned specifically on the COVID issues, mandates, masks, vaccines. And so when you get, even though we had a special session last year and the legislature came in and worked through these issues for a week and talked about how far could the state of Wyoming go against the federal government, what type of funding, and what impacted businesses. And some businesses wanted a mandate that people who weren't vaccinated couldn't come in their business because they had immunocompromised employees. Otherwise, other businesses said, we demand not to have any type of mask mandate. And so you have all of these various, competing voices out there. And I think a lot of the freshmen certainly are aware that things didn't happen to the extent that many of the far right or the Republican Party in Wyoming pushing back against the federal government wanted. And so this was their major campaign issue. And so they are there, and we are just doing 2.0, really. And I think that's what, frustrated some of us who sat through this for 2 years, and we've heard the debates and the conversations, but, so many of our freshman legislators, 25 or so, want to have that debate, and that's why they feel they got elected. So the bill did get through committee 5-4. We took out the criminal punishments of $5,000 fines and time in jail. And I think it's at the point where, it's palatable probably to the body, depending on some amendments. But we are apparently going to have that same COVID conversation that only half of us lived through, have it again this year.
I don't want to come off as a know-it-all, but I know the answer to this question. But for our listening audience, explain our legislative process. Obviously, is it similar to D.C., House to the Senate, and again, readings, and then we always see a lot of bills die during a regular session or general session that we're having right now. But explain the process to our listeners. So, again, you bring a bill forward, got to go through committee, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, a great thing about Wyoming is you have to have single subject legislation, so you can't be adding stuff on it like D.C. does. So we're really at the first process. It got through committee. It'll have 3 readings in the House this upcoming week. If it passes the House, we'll go to Senate, have another chance for public comment in a committee, 3 readings over there. So there's about 14 steps to getting a bill all the way into law in Wyoming, and it's really just cleared the first hurdle.
Is the governor the final answer to the question, or can it be vetoed?
Sure, the governor is 98% of the time the final authority of signing the bill into law. If he does veto it, the House would need 2/3 in both bodies to to override that. And so I think this bill is still in its infancy. You know, we had 5 amendments in committee. It doesn't look like what it came to the legislature in already at step 1. And there's just a lot of passion. I think there's a lot of anger out there as well in parts of Wyoming that they didn't, you know, they felt impacted and slighted, and they want Wyoming to stand up to the feds. Obviously, there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars at play and restrictions on businesses both ways. And so I still think Wyoming and the governor did about the extent of what we could have done. We didn't go as far down into the rabbit hole as many other states did on trying to close businesses for any longer than we had to. So I think it will be a good debate for the people of Wyoming and some of our newer legislators to say, these are all the issues we've wrestled with.
Dan, you know, I've been here since 1986, and I recall a time even back when Governor Sullivan was reelected, where we had 7 representatives Republican, we had 7 representatives Democrat in our chambers for Wyoming. This is a very unique chamber, both for the Senate and the House, with very little, and I'm not going to use left, but very little Democrat representation. It is predominantly Republican. What are you seeing on that Republican side? Are you seeing the steadfast, I'm digging in, you know, this is the way my constituents want me to vote. And again, you've been there, you did it, you've done it. So you know how to work across the aisle, so to speak. What are you seeing so far in our new House?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just changed a heck of a lot in the last 20 years. I came and there were 18 Dems, and now we're down to 5. You know, out of 62 representatives in the House, 57 are Republicans. And so I think the difficulty is really this kind of, we'll just call it anger, right? There's a lot of anger among the populace from the mandates and COVID and everything that's gone on the past 2 years. And so a lot of people, I think, have run on that anger, certainly against the federal government. They want Wyoming to fight and fight more than we are. But there's just parameters, right? We're a state, and we have the second highest amount of federal funds coming in of any state. And I know people say we shouldn't be dependent on money from the feds especially, but if we're not, you know, we talk about income taxes. We talk about raising sales or property tax. So there's a balance that I think it's easy to be angry. It's a lot tougher to try to solve these problems to work for our society. But I would say now the Democrats are not a force. With 5 of them, you know, they're not really a force on any of our issues, and the issues have really been this year so far a lot of the Republican freshmen who've campaigned, and probably for the first time in my 9 terms, a lot of these campaigns were against the legislature, against the institution, against incumbents, that they felt Cheyenne didn't stand up for them at the level they wanted, and so they campaigned to come down to Cheyenne and kick tail and take names, and they've united as kind of a force. When you have so many freshmen, they've just been a kind of a block of we're not going to listen to the establishment, we're not listening to the agencies or the special interests, the lobbyists, which is all fine and dandy, but, you know, for citizen legislature, so much of what we rely on are those people who actually have the expertise. And so it's gotten more ideological, and it's gotten more divisive in the Republican Party. You can't blame Democrats anymore. All of the fights are kind of internal between, you know, different sides of the ideological spectrum.
All right, we talked about monies before you came on, and matter of fact, the coal industry getting zonked for $100 million because of various factors. And again, whether it's lack of trains, lack of cars, you know, getting it from point A to point B. In the city, we know we've had our mayor on, and I know from various city council meetings I've been at through my life, talking with city council members, there's that rainy day fund of about, they're hoping for 2 to 3 months here in the city of Cheyenne. How does the legislature, you, House, Senate, Governor Gordon, how long do we have, barring, dare I say, the catastrophe similar to what we had in 2020 when COVID shut the state down? What is our nice little cushion that we have?
Yeah, no, for the first time in 6 years, we finally have some income. You know, we've had to be cutting and downsizing government and programs and assistance to our constituents, and we finally have just a little under $1 billion more than budgeted revenue this year. Our legislative stabilization reserve account, or the rainy day fund for the state, is just under $2 billion. And I think now that we've learned about the volatility and having another COVID experience, we're better positioning ourselves not to spend as much, to save, but make those funds liquid. That, historically we just put it in an inviolate account and we live off the interest. And that might be the other thing. Cheyenne and Laramie people, I don't think, appreciate how much of our revenues come from coal, oil, and gas. It's about over 50% of our state budget comes from those commodities, and another 20 to 25 comes from interest we're getting off those commodities. So yeah, 3/4 of our state budget is mineral related, but we don't in Cheyenne, I think, see the coal trains every day and have that same workforce. So it's just, I think we're insulating ourselves. Coal is doing really well right now. Still, projected to decline over the next decade. Oil is back up, as you've looked at the gas station lately. But the good news is, even with some of those high gas prices and coal prices, and that helps fund, your government. And I don't think we're squandering it. We are trying to invest it, save it for another rainy day, make sure we don't have to increase any of our sales taxes or ever have an income tax. And so we've been through this enough boom and bust cycle that your legislature is really kind of committed to what's the long-term fiscal position of our state, and we're doing everything right. I think we've had some times the last 20 years we haven't, but we're there this time. We're doing the right mix of saving and spending.
Well, it is something concerning, again, as we talk about that, those natural resources that, again, are going to decline, again, of the revenue as we move kind of more to that greener energy, as we see, again, the push here in the United States and, again, across the entire world. But, again, it's something that, again, I guess we'll get into a specific topic of, again, where we look to additional resources of bringing in here the Cowboy State to, again, bring in, again, those tax dollars to avoid all those unnecessary taxes to Wyoming citizens. Again, we look to Colorado. We look to states that, again, are adopting it very quickly around this United States. And something that, again, Wyoming of years past, but again, it was behind the times, brought in the lottery. And again, we know from Wild Lotto that, hey, those ticket sales, a lot of that taxes revenue is a big, nice chunk that goes back into our communities. I guess for you, Representative Zwonitzer, where, again, we look to, again, our bordering state of Colorado, they come out yearly of their revenue from marijuana sales. Hey, that's a pretty nice chunk of money that Colorado's getting. Obviously, again, who knows how much is accurate or truthful on that. But I guess for you, and it's something that I've talked about on the show many a time, is Wyoming close to adopting or at least passing marijuana legislation to at least bring in that revenue here?
I don't think we are right now. I think 4 years ago we were even closer. There's something about freshmen who are still trying to learn the lay of the land, and with 25 of them in the House, it's just, I think, a scary issue for them. So there, I think, are only 2 marijuana bills this year that I've seen so far. We still have another week and a half for other issues to come forward. But one is reciprocity for like medical marijuana with Colorado and Montana, and then there's a small decrim one as well, but not lessen felonies to misdemeanors in some cases. But I don't think right now, for the foreseeable future, we're moving anywhere on marijuana legislation. I think 4 and 6 years ago, when our revenues were really bad, we did look at those, and we didn't have the numbers of legislators who felt comfortable taking that step of taxing that product. We're always trying to find ways to stabilize our revenues, but most everybody relies on sales tax, property tax, or income tax. We don't have income. Our sales tax is the 4th lowest in the country, and our residential property tax is the 3rd lowest in the country. I mean, most of our money comes from minerals, and yes, taxes are always too high, but I think you go to any other state and you realize we're doing so much better than almost anywhere else when it comes to our taxation situation and balancing the needs for Wyomingites with the lowest amount of government possible.
State Representative from House District 43, Dan Zwonitzer, join us here on 1480 KRAE. KRAE Reports, a week in review. We'll have more with our conversation with Dan coming up right after these words.
I'm Brandon Warner with a Silent Witness Crime of the Week. The Laramie County Sheriff's Office is seeking information related to a larceny that occurred at an oil well site on County Road 222. Between December 12th and the 15th, over $14,000 worth of oil was stolen. If you have information about this or any other crime, call Crime Stopper Silent Witness at 638-TIPS or on the web at silentwitnesslaramiecounty.com. You will remain anonymous and may be eligible for a cash reward of up to $1,000. Together, we can make a difference.
Winter driving in Wyoming. Are you prepared? Winter storms strike quickly across Wyoming's high plains and the mountains. When they do, driving conditions can deteriorate rapidly and become very challenging. Make sure your vehicle is ready for the elements and you have an emergency preparedness kit available. Driving on slick roads, always remember slower speed, acceleration, steering, and braking. Also turn off the cruise control and always buckle up. Ice and snow. Take it slow. Know before you go. For travel info, call 511 or online at wyoroad.info. Paid for by Federal Highway Safety Funds.
Tired of choosing between finances and family time? Flat Valley Bank can help you take care of everything without missing anything. With our online and mobile banking, you can experience immediate access to check your account balance, pay bills, transfer money, and even create a budget. When life has you on the go, Flat Valley Bank makes it simple to take your banking with you. Platte Valley Bank, you belong here.
Platte Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Are you 60 plus and love to travel? Introducing the Senior Travel Discount Network, brought to you by Low Cost Airlines. Call us anytime, day or night, and save up to 75% on your airline and hotel reservations. We can help you save a ton of money to fly almost anywhere. We have inside discounts on over 500 airlines and 500,000 hotels worldwide. And when you call and mention the discount code 60 plus, we'll give you an extra free night with your qualified air and hotel reservation. Now you can get the best prices on air and hotel reservations with your phone. We make it easy and fast for you to save money and book a trip. Remember, call the Senior Travel Discount Network, mention the discount code 60 plus for your free hotel night with your qualified reservation. Call now.
800-510-7126. 800-510-7126. 800-510-7126. That's 800-510-7126.
For nearly 30 years, family-owned and operated Lennox Auto Body, along with the Auto Glass and Detail Center, has been serving our community with quality and customer satisfaction. It's a pretty simple drill. When you want it done right the first time, call Lennox Auto Body for an appointment at 307-634-6608. Lennox Auto Body at 1020 Dunn Avenue. And the Auto Glass and Detail Center. Remember, it's not clean until it's Lennox clean at 617 East Pershing Boulevard.
Lennox Auto Body. No shortcuts. No compromise.
Here's the latest weather forecast on 1480 KRAE.
Otherwise, for today, mostly cloudy. Expect a daytime high near 27. Mostly cloudy for tonight, low down to 12 degrees. Tomorrow, Tuesday, partly sunny with patchy blowing snow in the morning. We're calling for a daytime high near 28, and for Tuesday night, a mostly cloudy night with our low down to 14 degrees.
And we welcome you back to KRAE Reports We Can Review. And again, we have a House District representative from House District 43, Dan Zwonitzer, again, elected back in 2004 and has been reelected 9 times. So again, a veteran of the Wyoming Legislature. So he pretty much knows the drill. As you mentioned, you got 25 freshmen in there this year. So
well, even with all the fresh faces come to Cheyenne, they still trust him, or at least still believe in him.
But you know the interesting point, and this is no different than Congress. Congress is, especially when you have a group of freshmen coming in, the first year they're learning the job, the next year they're out for re-election. That's what it is in the House. It's 2 years. You got to, you got a general session, then you usually have a budget session. So there's pick them up, put them down time. Real quick, let's talk about the House bills. And again, we've got a list here of some of the important bills. How many bills in a general session do you have to seriously look at? And again, most of them die before they even get to committee, right?
Yeah, I would say in a general session there's roughly 300 in the House, 200 in the Senate, so 500 bills, and you kind of know right away about 100 of them aren't going. So I'd say there's about 400 pieces of legislation, maybe 220 in the House and 150, 160 in the Senate. You got to be kind of aware of that are moving around at any given time. We are a little right now less than we have been. I think with just so many freshmen, they have lots of ideas, but trying to translate those into actual legislation quickly, time is just not the friend in the Wyoming Legislature.
For you, the veterans in the Wyoming House right now, and again with the freshmen coming in, if you take a look at your top 3, the most important ones that you definitely need to be taken care of in this session. Tell us what your top 3 wish list is.
Sure. So, I mean, first you should know there's only 15 of us who've been there in our 3rd term or more. So we talk about term limits, but the Wyoming House or the Senate have had no difficulty in the number of turnover legislators. We're suffering from no institutional knowledge. Couldn't even find 10 committee chairmen who have all been there for more than 4 years. I've been there long enough that even good bills, they always come back. And so this isn't the year. But the nice thing overall, this is the year for us to do some things for long-term planning. There's a suicide prevention bill. As everyone knows, we've been 1st or 2nd in suicide for 30 years now. And I think we have some funding, and with some federal push on the 988 phone number, we will do some type of long-term funding towards suicide prevention and towards our crisis hotline. I think that's a good thing we can start now for the future. We have 6 or 7 other trust funds out there, outdoor recreation, school capital construction. We're really trying to find thoughtful ways of how not to, spend this one-time money in frivolous ways that can't be used for long-term investment projects. Right, with our boom and bust economy, that's what we've learned has kind of gotten us through these difficult times. When we have good years, we've done a lot of amazing things the past 5 years to be able to put our money both liquid and in higher interest-bearing accounts. And so we're really positioning Wyoming very well for the future. We have a permanent mineral trust fund that's been around for 50 years. We had $2 billion in it in 2000. In the past 20 years, we're going to have $10 billion in it now. And so just really working on our investment strategies, which started under Treasurer Lummis, have really just blossomed. And so I think those are the really important things, is what do we do now that's funding, the necessary infrastructure, but really working towards the future. And we're finally at this point again where I think we can fund some schools. We've had about 8 years of not being able to really fund schools at the level we need to on the buildings. And so that's, I think, the big push here in Laramie County as well, is to get some elementary schools fixed up. Hobbs and ARP are certainly past their prime, and so we really need to be trying to figure out, where the population's moving and how we can keep our schools infrastructure, the level they need to be.
Yeah, you mentioned ARP, especially with the south, the county or south of Cheyenne right now, growing leaps and bounds. And again, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I think of Bain. Schools are aging. Is it a total? I don't want to use the word. We got to raise these schools and put a brand new school in. What do you do to these aging schools to bring them somewhat up to the 21st century?
Yeah. I mean, we've had 10 years now in Cheyenne where we've been trying to do the Band-Aid approach to many of them while we've been building a Meadowlark or a Coyote Ridge, right? We've been trying to just hold the fort down on some of our other more dilapidated schools. And I think, some of those Band-Aids have finally worn off to where we need, to build new elementary schools in some cases. We don't need a Prairie Wind, all over Cheyenne, something that level, but there is some real push to get another elementary on the south side of town. The population is growing dynamically down southwest of town, and so that's, I think, what your Laramie County legislators, maybe one thing for Laramie County this year, are really pushing on some more education funding for building projects. We're certainly not looking for the Taj Mahal, but we have some serious safety issues in some of our older schools, and we need some new facilities.
We talk about that infrastructure here affecting the city of Cheyenne, Laramie County, but for you, again, yes, you've been a part of this legislative body for a long time, and again, you see how this state operates. What other infrastructure projects, or where is the state of Wyoming, and I guess we can encompass Laramie County, Cheyenne, where are we lacking in infrastructure that you want also to try, or at least are hopeful that Governor Gordon and this body can address, roads, sewers, pipes? I mean, what are we lacking here in the state that needs improvement?
And I would say, we're always lacking these quality of life amenities, but at the same time, that maybe isn't your state government's responsibility. We're really hoping Laramie County and the city of Cheyenne step up. Certainly not recreation centers, that hasn't been superbly popular. But those type of things like, parks and lighting and signage and, things like stormwater runoff that aren't exciting at all, that we really need. When we have floods, to make sure we don't have life events that would cost our citizens. So none of those things are always sexy or exciting, talking about infrastructure for basic roads and streets and sewers and gutters. But it is definitely a need that, you know, the government is responsible for. But I think we're doing great things in Laramie County. We have 2 new fire stations. I think our citizens have really stepped up on those 6-penny projects. So what your legislature is doing is, A, trying to, you know, encourage the cities who want that growth to really go after it. At the state level, you know, there are parts of Wyoming who don't want growth outside of water. And so I think that's maybe the one thing infrastructure-wise we do well as a legislature is help with some water projects, water development around parts of the state. We haven't been the beneficiaries of too much of that in Laramie County, you know, since the early 90s when they redid those aquifers west of Laramie. But I think that's just really trying to slowly move the ball down the field. Everybody wants to come have a win in the legislature, but most of when we get stuff done is kind of slow, you know, progressive movement towards a better quality of life and better schools and roads.
As we're nearly, at least at the top of the hour, and again, we'll take another break, and again, we'll talk with Representative Zwonitzer more on today's episode of, again, KRAE Reports. Again, we talk infrastructure and something that, again, affects Laramie County and Albany County, and something that's been kind of a hotbed issue for the past couple months, and again, we're seeing it as here we are in the winter months. I-80, that, again, has been proposed to move up a little bit north to avoid kind of going through that Vidavoo Pass, going and avoiding Buford, where, again, we see that shut down, which, again, does ripple across, not just affecting Wyoming, but, again, across kind of the trucking industry here in the United States. I guess more on an opinionated side of, should Wyoming, should Laramie County, Albany County, should we touch I-80 how it is, or should we look into, again, moving that, and how much does that closure kind of ripple and affect state of Wyoming, especially on the revenue side?
Oh, yeah. Well, all the studies show it's $1 million an hour. For every time I-80 is shut down anywhere between Pine Bluff to Evanston, it costs shipping and commerce about $1 million. And so when you do that, you know, every other third day in the winter, it's difficult. You know, and so we do have these kind of ideas that I'm never sure are going to hit fruition, like rerouting I-80. You know, some of the issue there is if we spend state money, will the feds continue to fund I-80 at the level they need to? Because the state of Wyoming literally can't fund I-80. It's $3.4 million a mile when you talk about interstates, when you have signage and grades and all that kind of stuff. So it would bankrupt Wyoming to try to, you know, have the state oversee I-80. And we have other things like this high rail corridor we keep talking about with Fort Collins and Denver to have high-speed rail. You know, it always sounds like it's promising. I'm optimistic. I think Wyoming is positioning itself if Colorado steps up and these private companies come in that maybe we could have a high-speed rail, which would be great. But, you know, we're not a very progressive state, and so I don't necessarily see that happening quickly. The rerouting of I-80, we're talking about tolling I-80 again. There's a bill this year to put a toll to help fund it. I mean, commerce is expensive and highways are extremely expensive.
More with House District 43 State Representative Dan Zwonitzer joining us here on 1480 KRAE. We're back after this.
This is 1480 KRAE Cheyenne.
17 years in the community and still striving to offer you the best value in a new vehicle. AJ Miller here for Kia of Cheyenne. Take a look at the new 2023 Kia Sorento. With the 2023 Kia Sorento, you have a choice of 3 models, 8 different trims, and 4 different all-weather drive modes. Some available features include 281 horsepower, 20-inch wheels, remote start, and climate control. Come into Kia of Cheyenne, call 775-0123 or go to kiaofcheyenne.com, and we'll make it easy.
Capital Lumber is number 1 in Cheyenne. Are you listening? We're all the lumber store you'll ever need. For electrical, plumbing, paint, and tools, lumber and hardware, we're for you. And we're out to earn your business, yes indeed. Capital Lumber is number 1 today. Are you listening? Capital Lumber's at your service all the way.
Since 1966, Cheyenne and Laramie County has depended on and trusted family-owned and operated Capital Lumber Company for all your lumber and hardware needs at 1222 Dunn Avenue in Cheyenne. Your locally owned and operated radio stations KYOI-FM and 1480 KRAE AM are just that, local, serving Cheyenne and Laramie County, where your advertising dollar stays local too. It doesn't end up in Colorado, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, or even New York. We conduct business here, we shop here, and we live here. And we support our entire community 24/7, 365. Just because it has a window dressing doesn't mean it isn't a facade. A reminder from KYOY and 1480 KRAE.
Attention! This is a public notice from the Social Security Disability Helpline. If you're one of the millions of Americans who are disabled and unable to work, you may be eligible for disability benefits from Social Security. Receiving benefits is your right. If you suffer from physical or mental disability, whether you're applying for the first time or you've already been denied, we can help. We'll evaluate your situation and deal with Social Security on your behalf. Best of all, there's no fee until you receive your benefits. Remember, we only get paid if you win your case. There are many reasons and conditions that may make you eligible for disability benefits. Many of them you may not be aware of. So if you're disabled and unable to work, call now to get started with your free, no-obligation consultation.
800-797-0711. 800-797-0711. 800-797-0711. That's 800-797-0711.
Cheyenne Regional wants to help you eat better, move more, and live longer. Join us at our annual Wake Up to Heart Health event on February 4th at 9 a.m. at the New Blue Community Events Center. You'll hear the survival story of a heart attack patient and his harrowing journey to the hospital, and from a Cheyenne Regional cardiologist about reducing your risk factors for a heart attack. The cost to attend this life-changing event is only $25. To register, visit CheyenneRegional.org/wakeup by January 31st.
Sweetie, want some fruit? You have to use the right tool for the job. A power drill is the wrong tool to slice fruit. Just like an antibiotic is the wrong tool to treat viruses, including colds and flu. Antibiotics are only needed for certain bacterial infections. When they aren't needed, antibiotics won't help you, and the side effects could still hurt you. Ask your healthcare professional when an antibiotic is the right tool and when it's not. Visit cdc.gov/antibiotic-use.
Here's the latest weather forecast on 1480 KRAE.
Weather-wise for today, mostly cloudy. Expect the daytime high near 27. Mostly cloudy for tonight, low down to 12 degrees. Tomorrow, Tuesday, partly sunny with patchy blowing snow in the morning. We're calling for a daytime high near 28, and for Tuesday night, a mostly cloudy night with our low down to 14 degrees. It's time now for something new for you. It's KRAE Reports, a week in review. And now let's check in with our program right here on 1480 KRAE Cheyenne.
And we welcome you back to KRAE Reports, a week in review. Some marvelous conversations that we're having with Dan, especially during the breaks. But we do want to get back into the business of the House. And again, Dan, you know exactly what we're going to be driving into here. House Bill 103 and the political party affiliation.
Yep.
I gave you my opinion. My opinion was well in play before President Trump, former President Trump, stated his opinion. I am not one. And again, I gave my dad a lot of grief for doing that back before he passed away in 1983. I think it was the election of 82 in California, and I gave him a lot of grief about it. He switched from his current party to the opposing party and then jumped right back after the election. We saw that uniqueness here in Wyoming this past election in 2022. Okay? Now it is the political party affiliation act that's going to be brought up. Nick brought up a very good point here that, hey, maybe we should go nonpartisan with all of our elections. Tell us a little bit about House Bill 103, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I served on Corporations and Elections Committee for 16 years, 6 years as chairman. And I think I would say that most people agree that we need a different system than what's in place. The difficulty for a long time now, since 2016, has been getting agreement on what to replace the current system with. Is it a runoff primary? Is it an open primary, or what we'd call a jungle primary? Is it using a different kind of a tabulation method like ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting that Maine and Alaska are using? And I think historically when we've actually crunched the numbers, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there, and a lot of people say they know that all these Democrats switched over or vice versa. It really, when we looked at all the evidence from the voter registration changes, it appears that a lot of independents have switched to vote in Republican and switched back to independents. We haven't seen that many Democrats. And that was true right up until this August primary, where I think we saw 94% of the voting public in the state voted in the Republican primary, which is fascinating that some of the Democrats, won with 8 votes there, 9 votes in contested Democratic primaries. And so I think after this last election cycle, it's really tough to say this doesn't happen to the extent people are saying it does, because it certainly did. But whether that was a Cheney-Hageman specific, but we might have more of those in the future, right? Certainly we have a presidential election coming up in 2024, which I would imagine in the Republican Party is looking like it could get real contentious. And so there are 2 or 3 bills out there on party affiliation switching and what's the best way to go, right? New Hampshire, they allow anybody to pick which party they want to vote in and get a primary ballot for that party. Other states are much more restrictive, even Colorado, south of us, on having to declare which party you are, 6 months in advance. And so the issue, I think, for Wyoming that's been sticking when it comes to affiliation changes, it's a lot of the members of the Republican Party, certainly the Central Committee, has really said we need to have, your party locked in place before you see who's running for office. And I think for those of us who, including myself, who've been here for a while, a lot of us don't know that our neighbors are an independent or a Democrat, and it makes sense to wait and see who files for office so you know who's on the ballot before you claim which party you want to follow. And I think that's just an ideological thing. Some people will tell you, if you're a Republican, your Republican doesn't matter. Others will say, hey, we want to vote for the person, and we didn't know that, whoever, my next door neighbor, was actually really a Democrat, but I like the heck out of him, and so I would rather vote for him against. And some of those races, they don't have opponents, right? So you want to go vote for, your friend in a contested primary versus, an open seat that nobody's running for. It makes a little more sense to me to know who's on the ballot, know where the competitions are before you, jump in and say, okay, I'm going to take that ballot and I'll swear by it. But that's just, I think, the issue we've had in the legislature.
Yeah, we see that in the primary and the general election, again, time after time, where, again, opponent running opposed automatically gets that position, or, again, we see only one candidate on the Democratic side, and, again, we have a bunch of Republicans going after, again, that kind of side of the ticket. But I guess a opinionated question towards you would be, again, we talk New Hampshire, we talk Utah, and, again, it's been brought up over the past couple months of, again, the nonpartisan election. Wyoming was going to take a look at it. Again, obviously nothing has been set in stone. Again, it kind of went passé as well, too, as time went on here in the state of Wyoming. But I guess, is there benefit of moving to a nonpartisan election here in the state of Wyoming? Could it ever be a reality here in this state?
Oregon tried about 18 years ago that all their legislators didn't run on a party. And that didn't work. So actually now, if you look at the Oregon ballot, they can run on 3 different parties. They basically just, say they're a moderate Republican-leaning libertarian, and you can have multiple qualifications. So I don't know if that's happening in Wyoming. We certainly have talked about, do we need our county offices to be partisan? Do you need a Republican clerk of district court, or a Republican or Democratic coroner?
Sheriff?
Maybe not. An assessor, yeah. But I think county commissioners and sometimes sheriff people seem to want those to be partisan. You would hope they'd enforce the law either way, but I think county commissioners, people certainly like that being a partisan office. But we haven't really discussed it much further than that. And the other big issue in Wyoming, which we don't talk about and we don't promote enough, there's a thing called the Motor Voter Act, and it's otherwise called the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. And there's only 6 states that are still not in it, including Wyoming. And that's what allows us to change parties on Election Day and to still register on Election Day. If we don't do that, we fall under what's called motor voter, which is where when you get your driver's license, you're automatically registered as a voter and you're automatically registered on a jury, maybe against your will. And so there's some other federal parameters on how we have to conduct our elections that fall in line. And so actually Maine exempted themselves, and they went on motor voter and they tried to get out, and the federal government basically said no, they wouldn't let them. And so we've been very kind of prideful since 1993 that we have not taken that step, which is subsequently what allows us to change our party affiliation day of the election. We talked about all these issues for a decade of, when 74 to 77% of your population are the same party, that presents unique issues and certainly party infighting. But so far we have just not come to a consensus on what the best path forward is. And there's people say, hey, if we make everybody register one party in March, then everybody will just register Republican because there's no races anymore in the Democratic Party outside of Jackson and Laramie. So that might do more harm than good. So, like all politics, lots of things people say that sound good until you really delve into the issue and think about the ramifications. And then you go, well, maybe that's not how Wyoming wants to go. So
I'm glad that you mentioned 1993. Then Secretary of State Kathy Carpet, who was with Governor Mike Sullivan as he was in his second term as governor. Let's talk about today's Secretary of State KRAE. Talk about State Treasurer Buchanan. How much influence do they have on a House bill that is going through the process, or a lobbyist? How much do lobbyists and those currently in the Big Five, how much influence do they have talking to you or whoever about moving a bill along?
Yeah, no, it's certainly an interesting question. So, the basic caveat of state government is any cabinet director and any state employee is not allowed to express a preference when they testify, right? They're there to inform and educate, and even if, their own position's going away, they just have to say the neutral facts of what this legislation will do. We have historically allowed our top 5 state elected officials to weigh in with, a preference, with an ideology, if a bill should pass or fail. The governor is not really allowed to do that, right? He can't threaten to veto a bill. He can just say he doesn't like it. But we've never, it's been a rare occasion one of our top 5 statewide electeds have come to the legislature and talked in favor or against a bill, maybe once every couple of years, and only the most major of bills. This is the first time where we have our Secretary of State showing up to every corporations committee and other multiple committees, kind of lobbying for or against pieces of legislation, which is certainly, I think, in the role is allowed, but we've just never seen one of our statewide officers at the level that it's happening now really come in trying to push legislation. So that's new and unique, I think, to this year's legislative session. He certainly campaigned that he would try to influence policy and get his agenda pushed through. The last one who really did that was our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Cindy Hill, who came and really tried to push through kind of the agenda she ran on in campaigning, and the legislature said, well, you're exceeding your authority and what the Constitution, the legislature gives you, and most people remember that fiasco, and we certainly don't want another one of those. So it's just been unique. A lot of stuff about this session when you have 28 freshman legislators has been unique in my tenure, and there's just a huge learning curve for everyone on getting those people kind of understanding how all this works. You certainly hear that government is the problem and it doesn't work and it's ineffective, and you come down and it's just a learning curve for some of the freshmen to kind of learn how all these budgets work and where the funding comes from and how we spend it and how we save it, and some of the things they may have heard about us in the campaign trail, and they meet us in person, we have to work together 12 hours a day, they realize, oh, maybe some of this stuff you knew what you were talking about. So that's part of the power of incumbency, I think.
I want to get into kind of a personal question with you, at least Representative Zwonitzer, where, again, you talk about your tenure, and again, you've been a representative for a long time. We keep on at least getting back into it. But I guess what I'm trying to drive at is, what keeps you going and going out there seeking re-election, term after term, where, again, we talk about politics. It's a dirty term. It's something that, again, not a lot of folks want to get involved with. They hate the politicians. Hey, again, the old adage of drain the swamp has been kind of in recent years. But, for you on a personal level, what kind of drives you to get back out there on the campaign trail and try to represent Cheyenne and Laramie County? What kind of attracts you to be a representative?
Yeah, I think there's always some more good to do, right, is really how I think about it. And, I just got elected young, right? So I'm only 43, and I'm still trying to kind of figure out what I'm doing in my life. And I think it's been just interesting. Most people, when they decide to run, they run when they're retired, and they get to about 70, 75 and say, I just can't do 12-hour days at this level. And so, every 2 years I have the conversation with my family and my kids. For a while there were like, we want you to be done with this. And then this cycle, they were like, no, we really need you in there. We want you to keep serving people, say, good stuff. And we had so many people not run again and redistricting I kind of ran again this time thinking that it would be the huge turnover it is, and we just needed to keep some people who had the institutional knowledge. So that's really my role anymore now, since the second longest serving member, is to just get up and say, hey, they tried this 5 years ago. Here are the arguments for or against. And so we have a lot of freshmen with a lot of great ideas, and I'm kind of the downer. Like, actually, they've tried this 4 times, and here's what you need to know why we didn't get it passed last time. And in some cases, that's great. They're like, oh, they've incorporated that, and people change. So that's kind of, I'm like the sage advice guy now in the legislature in the back at 43 for most of my colleagues. But, the passion's still there, and I told myself, 2 more years for the voters of the county, and I really enjoy it and think that knowledge base that I've built up over 20 years, people have invested a lot in me. I've gotten a lot of cool stuff to help further my knowledge base to give back, and so I feel a little guilty if I just move on and don't get to continue kind of giving that knowledge base back until we maybe have some more stability. The turnover has been immense the past 4 years. Just immense.
Let's talk about, I think it's House Bill 80, as that is being brought to you, Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is not foreign. This Medicaid has been talked about for a long, long time. We're a little more unique than the feds. Again, it seems like out of the District of Criminals, they kind of, they try to send edicts down, and we kind of balk at them because we do business a different way. Talk about House Bill 80 and your thoughts on that, because again, it's back, in the forefront again.
Yeah, I think it's very fair to say the feds are doing all in their power to bribe and coerce us at once. And so we're looking at like a 55% match for the next, it would be basically 2 years of free federal money, if you can say free, right? Because it always has strings attached. But right now it looks like it's about $12 million for state money to get roughly about $180 million of federal money that Wyomingites are paying in. And so I think Medicaid expansion, it's really fair to say this is not the silver bullet, and it's not even the silver bullet for any state. But for a state like Wyoming that's very rural and has a lot of kind of mental health issues, we don't have good access to care. We have a lot of critical access rural hospitals that are in danger of closing. That I think it does make sense for us. I try to be non-ideological. When you just look at the numbers and where this money is, we're paying for it already. They just have to move it around. But I do think that there's a strong philosophical argument against it, that we don't want to commit our citizens to even more dependence on the federal government and more federal money. And so, more and more states each year have gone on to Medicaid expansion, either through their legislature or lately some of our more conservative state allies have gone over through ballot initiatives. And I think there's 11 states left, and it's probably not going away. So we continue to have this fight every year for the last 10 years. I think every year 1 or 2 more legislators, really get through the numbers and sit down and say, we don't like it, but it probably makes sense if we want to keep some of our rural hospitals open and give people this access to care. So, I've been for it for a long time, but I've always tried to be the one to say this is not the answer to Wyoming's problems, and it is just more federal money. But I think when the point comes we're paying for it through your Medicaid taxes already, and it's going to other states, it's probably time to bring it home. So I do think it'll maybe pass the House. I doubt it'll pass the Senate outside of a budget amendment. So I'm not sure this is the year, but I do think it continues to move down the field every year, and sometime in the next 5 years, we'll probably do it. The feds are offering us a really good deal for the next 2 years if we want to capitulate and take that federal money and jump in. So there's a point, right, that it costs taxpayer money, and if we can get the feds to give it to us, even though they're $32 billion in debt, I don't think Wyoming's going to break the bank. So those are my thoughts. It's an ongoing issue. A lot of people are passionate on all sides, but it just hasn't gone away in 10 years, and that's not going to.
Another national issue that combines with states are veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And our veterans are aging. Again, we could probably eliminate WW2, but let's talk Korea, Vietnam, and then you get into the Persian Gulf situations, Afghanistan. Let's talk about care for our veterans? Because I'm sure that is always brought up before the House as well as the Senate. And again, this wonderful state cares about veterans.
We do,
and our legislature does too. Where we go, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I think we go above and beyond what the feds do.
I think last I looked, we're still 5th in the country on our per capita number of Wyomingites who enter the military and military service. Obviously, Cheyenne is a huge military town. We did have our first kind of skilled veterans nursing facility built in Buffalo last year, and there's a bill this year to have a second. It's been so wildly popular to really, help the veterans in their later years who are now coming down with these health needs, that we are trying to find if there's a place to build another one in Cheyenne or Casper. As you know, Cheyenne has a VA, so Casper's the most likely spot. But no, I think we have veterans exemptions for our taxes. We do a lot of pro-military things here with the National Guard and our Veterans Service Commission, and I think it's great. We encourage Wyomingites to join the military. I think it's a great life. And it's a great deal for, a good retirement and a good quality of life. So we have, I think, a host of other bills, some on, license plates and care. But, ultimately, I do think in about 10, 15 years, once we get past the Vietnam era of people being drafted, that we'll see some change, I think, in the federal government and the state government. We still have a lot of times when we think about our veterans issues, the need for those people who had to serve against their will and got drafted to go serve. And we owe them a huge debt of gratitude and thanks. Once we get past maybe Vietnam here in 30 years, when we have the next generation of Desert Storm and Afghanistan veterans who chose, I do think we'll see some redefining of some of our current programs, because that's really the talk in the legislature is the veterans who served in Vietnam, deserve pretty much everything we can give them. So.
Final thought or question for you, Representative Zwonitzer, where again we're very appreciative of joining us today here on KRAE Reports. Again, very informative of what's going on with the legislature right now. Again, the upcoming House bills, and again we'll see what kind of moves on and becomes kind of enacted here in the state of Wyoming. This is kind of more towards an opinionated, at least, situation for you, Dan. Where let's talk about what's going on a national level, where Senator Lummis got a lot of flack here in the state of Wyoming for being one of 12 Republican, at least, senators who kind of jumped the script, so to speak, and went for that Respect for Marriage Act on the nationwide level. Caught a lot of flack here in the state of Wyoming, especially from GOP representatives, some state leaders as well, too, some county representatives as well, that were not in favor of her jumping lines to get on board with this Respect for Marriage Act. I want to get your thoughts on this of, again, does she deserve this flack here in the state of Wyoming? Does she deserve to be kind of attempted to be censured for, again, kind of jumping that line for an act that, in my opinion, again, no issue with?
Yeah, I don't think any politician deserves flack for taking, a vote to the best of their ability for what they believe in. And I do think she was just in a special case, right? You look at the other 12 Republicans, the states they represent, North Carolina, Alaska, are very swing states. Cynthia would have been completely safe by voting against it. And so it was nice to, have her recognize that this is a divisive issue in the Republican Party in the country. But I think every year support for same-sex marriage grows just a bit. And within, there are 4 or 6 issues. I think she's on the same page a lot of us are. This can't be the wedge issue for the Republican Party anymore. I mean, we've had the law of the land now for 6 or 7 years. Certainly, we have some transgender issues coming up in this kind of same realm. Which are the new wedge issues that are dividing Republicans. But I think same-sex marriage, she rightly said, it's 6 or 7 years. And certainly people have beliefs on marriage, especially in their religion. But so no, I applaud her. I don't think anybody should get flack. We make tough decisions as politicians. And I think, especially as a legislator, people want me to attack our school board members or our county commissioners. And part of being an elected official says you have to respect other elected officials who are just trying to do what they believe is right at their level, even if you don't agree with it. So, no, there's politicking and there's those kind of things, but when people take a vote and they explain it and they say, this is my belief of why, and they take the effort to really explain their thought process, I think people need to understand that, that's part of what being a good elected official is, hearing about everything, thinking about the future, thinking where this country is going, and taking principled stances towards, trying to help us all, move forward as a country.
Final thought from me too, Dan, and thank you so much for coming by today and give us a lot of your time. Yeah. I look at 105. We'll talk about that. We are a state that is very, very pro-gun.
Pro-gun, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. And I think back, and we have been fortunate in the state, and I might be wrong here, in the decade, because I'm now mid-60s. I think it was the 70s in Cokeville, where I think we had our
86, I believe.
86,
yeah.
Okay, where we had really our last incident of a situation of guns being where they shouldn't be. But let's talk about this repealing act of 105. Tell us a little bit your thoughts and why this is being brought about.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 105 is the repeal gun-free zones and preemption amendments, which really does away with gun-free zones and makes sure that a city can't put any more restrictive policies on firearms than exist at the state of Wyoming. And this is, it's just an issue that's based on the nature of Wyoming, that there are schools in very rural places that law enforcement probably can't get to in time should there be an incident, and maybe there should be a firearm. I know we make the joke about bears up in Wapiti that was repeated on the Senate floor, but there are a lot of rural schools that people are comfortable with firearms and they know how to use them, and maybe they should be allowed. That local control for your local school district, I think, is really important. So the preemption part slightly bothers me, because if you believe in local control and you realize how distinct and unique Wyoming is everywhere, that maybe that local school board should really deciding if they want gun-free zones or not. Cheyenne schools, there's a lot of other issues that really go into it. Number one is insurance, and the cost for insurance to allow firearms in our schools in the city of Cheyenne is astronomical. We would lose the money we would have to spend on higher insurance premiums, would have a drastic effect on teachers, on learning. And so those are things you don't think about when we talk about, we should be able to have guns in schools or firearms if they're locked up. But there's lots of just other issues, right? That's not talking points. And so I don't know how far the bill is going to go. It's being sponsored. It has about 20 co-sponsors. We've tried similar bills in the past, and they get bogged down in some of the issues about the what-ifs. And so I would like to, perhaps see that we would allow some school districts to exempt out, or certain schools at the behest of their local school district. But it's an emotional topic. I think sometimes we're always either the number 1 or number 2 state behind Mississippi on pro-gun laws or on gun freedom. And so every legislator is always trying to bring another bill that kind of pushes that ball down the field. But we're trying to keep it at a level where we don't go off the cliff here on gun laws. But I think there is some more work to be done, and we can probably be more flexible with some of our rural schools on allowing them to have firearms for their protection.
All right, Dan. Again, we got a day off today with the House and with the Senate. But for those that can't get out, and instead of writing letters to the editor and griping and moaning, can they? Are you in touch? Not with just your district, but in general, can people get in touch with you if they have a concern or a call?
And I think the great thing about Cheyenne and Laramie County is all of our legislators kind of work together for the benefit of Laramie County. So when we get emails from anybody in Cheyenne or citizens who come in, and that their question involves one of the areas we're on those committees, we certainly shuffle around and make sure we're meeting the entirety of Cheyenne. So we have wyoleg.gov, WYOLEG.gov. That has all the information on all the bills, all of our emails and contact information. You can certainly email or text any of us, I think, in Laramie County, are all agreeable to that. Obviously, it's a busy time, so the best time to meet with your legislator is in spring or summer when we don't have so much going on. But they even give us, kind of a fund called the Constituent Service Allowance. If you want to go have a cup of coffee with your legislator, they literally give us funds to pay for your cup of coffee and talk to us about your issues. So that's a really great thing about Wyoming legislature. We encourage participation. We are number 1 or 2 in the country when they talk about our websites and our public information. You can sign up for email alerts, know every agenda item, all of our minutes, all of our contact information. You can see where your district boundaries are and information about your legislator. So we're very good in Wyoming about public information and contact and working with we each represent about 10,000 people.
So
Heck, even just like the show and KRAE in general, even Legislator on YouTube as well, too. So you can go over there, go check out their channel, and they post all that on that side, too.
Well, one of the nice things that, Dan likes to save the state money. He brings his own personal thermos in, so he'll take you out for a cup of coffee there and to save that money, that contingency fund. Anyway, State Representative, House District 43, Dan Zwonitzer, thank you so much. Very interesting conversation that we had with you today. Interesting stuff. And again, for all of our folks that listen and watch KRAE reports that we can review, definitely get involved with your Wyoming legislative process. Again, general session. About how long do you anticipate us to be working?
5 more weeks until about March 3rd, and I'm really hoping we don't have a special session this year.
All right. Sounds good. We're going to take a break. More of KRAE reports that we can review coming up right after this.
The next time you have a craving for authentic Mexican cuisine, visit Hacienda Guadalajara at 317 East Lincoln Way. Locally owned and operated, they serve their dishes with family tried and true recipes with the freshest of ingredients, made to order. Start off your meal with their complimentary chips, salsa, and bean dip. And if you're feeling adventurous, enjoy your favorite margarita or cerveza. Hacienda Guadalajara, where the spice is always nice.
Tired of choosing between errands and adventures? Platte Valley Bank can help you take care of everything without missing anything. Next time you get a check, just sign, snap, and send the money directly into your account with mobile deposit. We can't fill your fridge, but we can save you a trip to the bank. Mark another errand off your list and get back to life. Platte Valley Bank, you belong here.
Platte Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Cheyenne Urological has been the cornerstone of urinary care to Cheyenne and its surrounding communities for over 30 years. With their fine expert doctors, along with their highly trained staff, they will provide top-quality treatment for prostate cancer, urinary tract infections, kidney stones, impotence, and incontinence. Cheyenne Urological is now offering cutting-edge robotic surgery. So call Cheyenne Urological at 635-4131 for compassionate, expert urinary care. That's 635-4131. MHP is a certified public accounting and consulting firm located in Bow, Cheyenne, and Fort Collins, offering accounting, tax, and consulting services to businesses, not-for-profit, government, and individual clients. MHP takes pride in their commitment to providing close, personal attention to their clients. They also continue to invest time and resources in continuing education, state-of-the-art computer technology, and valuing their relationships with you. MHP is a proud supporter of local and UW athletics. MHP, 314 West 18th Street, or call 634-2151.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 800-961-2730. 800-961-2730. That's 800-961-2730.
Here's the latest weather forecast on 1480 KRAE.
Weather-wise for today, mostly cloudy. Expect the daytime high near 27. Mostly cloudy for tonight, low down to 12 degrees. Tomorrow, Tuesday, partly sunny with patchy blowing snow in the morning. We're calling for a daytime high near 28, and for Tuesday night, a mostly cloudy night with our low down to 14 degrees.
Thank you again to House District 43 Representative Dan Zwonitzer, joining us again, elected back in 2004 and has been reelected 9 times to House District 43, where, again, kind of like the elder statesman, working with some of those new freshman representatives. And again, too, it is going to be a long session. How many bills will die, how many bills will actually get consideration remains to be seen. We got just a few minutes left here in our program for today. Nick, you might want to remind our listeners / viewers that this program, and again, if you missed the conversation with Dan Zwonitzer, we're going to have it for you a little later on today.
We certainly do, as we do with KRAE Reports, the Pro Show. Again, as our shows are live 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Again, do get replay the same day at 4 and 6 o'clock. So, again, if any of our conversations or interviews, again, whether it's on the sports side, the politics side, again, gets replayed. Again, so for instance, again, KRAE Reports played later on today, 4 and 6 o'clock, 1480 AM, 101.1 FM, and 1480KRAE.com on the audio side. Do want also to make a plug for 8 until 10 o'clock tonight, the Golden Age of Radio. 2 hours of, again, old-time radio theater. Again, for instance, again, it is All-Star Western Theater. That's up first with 2 episodes, and then 2 episodes of Meet the Press from back in the day, the 50s and 60s. I think even push, again, a little bit in the 40s when that program was on, again, back in the old NBC days. So, again, that's what to look forward on the Golden Age of Radio, which will play for all 3 days. Again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, we don't have at least Golden Age due to the fact that we have East versus Central, men's and women's basketball live from Storage Gymnasium here on 1480 KRAE. But anyways, that's what's upcoming, again, here, at least today, on 1480 KRAE.
A couple of things from the Cheyenne Police Department as they provided an update in the homicide case.
Another arrest.
Yeah, matter of fact, well, that'd be all 3 that were in the vehicle with the minor that got shot.
You got, yeah, again, 2 teenagers and this individual that was at least above 21, again, coming in from Burns, that was kind of an associate, or at least kind of facilitate what happened over by the Frontier Mall.
She was 26 years old, Sarah Heath, and she has been arrested on charges of accessory after the fact of manslaughter, furnishing alcohol to a minor, 3 counts, and possession of marijuana. She was booked into the Laramie County Jail without incident. So of the 4, which one lost her life, you have the 19-year-old Tirso, I hope I said that, Munguia, and he was 19, and Cody Nicholson. They were seated in the back, mishandling a firearm, and shot the victim, who was in the passenger side of the car. I think that was back on, January 9th. And according to the statements by the young men, they were handling a firearm while the group was traveling on Delrange Boulevard. And Munguia reportedly fired the gun, striking the female victim, who was in the front passenger seat. Heath pulled the vehicle over. Nicholson fled on foot because he had an outstanding, I do believe it was not a warrant, but a violation.
Yeah.
And he fled on foot with the firearm. Heath then proceeded to the Frontier Mall parking lot, placed a call to 911. Case is still under investigation by the Cheyenne Police Department, but all 3 that were in that vehicle during this time have been booked into Laramie County.
And make a note regarding the Cheyenne Police Department, because, again, we've had a few incidents happening here in town, again, at least marking the new calendar year in 2023, and we talk about the Cheyenne South incident. This recent, again, at least incident over near the Frontier Mall. Again, we had a prior shooting earlier here in the month of January. Either way, though, again, I've reached out to the police department. Again, we will have Chief Francisco on this program at some point in time. Again, not at least to be determined, to be announced, but again, we have reached out. Again, we will have Chief Francisco to join us in studio once again to talk about those incidents, and also to talk about something that they posted recently of, again, the amount of burglaries that have happened here across the entire city of Cheyenne. That, again, Silent Witness has come out, and again, they've made a nice little map to show you the incidents that have been happening. We'll talk about kind of the, I don't know if you want to say uptick in crime, but again, it's been some big crime stories,
and
that have happened.
It's in every neighborhood. Okay, so don't think that one neighborhood's safer than the other. And it's interesting too, because again, we are not Mayberry, North Carolina. All right, here's the deal. Unfortunately, times have changed. You're out warming up your car in the morning or at night. You know, don't somehow, some way, you got to keep it in view. You got to keep that vehicle in view, because there are a lot of clowns that are in this town right now. And I'm not talking about common citizens. I'm talking about there are folks that are just in town to cause problems.
But there is definitely a cry out there. And again, we've talked with, again, whether it's city council or, again, those trying to fight for those seats on the city council. Again, a lot of representatives and, again, live here in the city of Cheyenne that have voiced their concern regarding the police department of these crime stats. And, again, what is happening here in Cheyenne of, again, is it an issue that, again, with the lack of boots on the ground by the police department, again, the lack of security out there that is going to be able to monitor a growing city that is Cheyenne right now, again, it is concerning. Again, we will talk with Chief Francisco, which, again, we've had it on this program many a time, and, again, very appreciative of him coming in and talking and giving the viewpoints of the police department. But, again, the recent incidents to start off kind of 2023, no pun intended, with at least with a bang, is a little concerning right now. And again, I think it kind of speaks for all of citizens of Cheyenne that these events hopefully are just isolated, that this is not a trend in the wrong direction for the city of Cheyenne for the year of 2023. But anyways, again, that'll be for, again, a future date, again, future program here, again, KRAE Reports, again, talking with Chief of Police Mark Francisco.
All right, and our closing story here, and this is from Anthony Bouchard. He introduces a bill that would ban child sex change surgeries here in Wyoming.
And make note, this is, again, a bill introduced on the Senate side. So
right, yeah. And again, this is courtesy of the Cowboy State Daily. I'm going to read it real quick here. Proposed Wyoming law surfaced over the weekend that would forbid insurers from covering sex change treatments for children and ban doctors from performing them. Sponsored by State Senator Anthony Bouchard, a Republican of Cheyenne. Senate File 144, a.k.a. Chloe's Law, is named after detransitioner and activist Chloe Cole. Cole is a female who started taking cross-sex hormones at the age of 13 and had her breasts removed when she was 15 in an effort to transition to being a boy. Cole, now 18 years old, has since detransitioned or reverted back to presenting as a woman, voicing deep regret for her double mastectomy and other changes from her teenhood. Senate File 144 specifically targets doctors, making their licenses revocable if they administer sex change treatments, including surgeries, cross-sex hormones, and puberty blockers to minors.
Something of that, again, Dan Zwonitzer talked about there at the tail end of our interview, of saying, hey, this is kind of that dividing topic, especially within Republican lines. And again, it's a heavy, hotbed issue, again, for both sides of the aisle, especially here, not just in the state of Wyoming, but the U.S. Does this bill move forward? Does this bill get enacted? I could see. I don't think it's right, but can it go forward and be enacted?
What do you feel is not right?
I don't think you can revoke doctor. Again, this is just from my aspect, again, regarding the government. What should say to you of what I want to do as a body? Now, again, this is also to an interesting, or again, it kind of gets into the muddy waters of, it is underage, again, where you talk about with Chloe Cole, again, at least had that change at the age of 13. I think there should be a set age limit, kind of what we're seeing kind of on the Underage Marriage Act that, again, Representative Zwonitzer is trying to at least get passed forward here in the state. But I think there should be an age limit. But, again, what the government should tell you, or at least say if you can or can't, I don't think that's right here in the state of Wyoming. Again, I think 18, you can make that decision for yourself.
Well,
if you can vote. Yeah, again, I think minors, yes. I don't think parents or anything like that can force upon their child. I don't think that's right. But again, 18 though, and again, it sounds like with this bill, it could be it's going to be same-sex, at least. Or again, who knows what the domino effect could be if this gets enacted. Again, it is focusing on the child aspect. Like I said, yeah, I think that put a bill forward that, yes, has at least make sure that child, at least it
has to have some meat and potatoes behind it. I agree. Yeah. But here's the deal, and I'm glad you said 18, because we're using 18 as the moniker as adult, all right? But also, too, in this situation here, our youth, boys and girls, are being taught as young as kindergarten whether they should, take a look at their bodies. And
it's not happening everywhere. So don't listen to national media. That makes you think it's happening in your backyard.
But I'm just saying, what we're trying to do here in Wyoming, what we're trying to say here in Wyoming is that Chloe Cole, at age 13, was not an adult, and should not have been even, a part of this transitioning program.
Yeah.
It's illegal. It should be illegal. That's what it should have been. But
See, and again, for me, that's where it becomes a tough. At least where again, I'm so anti-government, or at least telling what you can or can't do. But again, this is something, especially regarding minors. Again, something where, your brain is operating a little different at various ages. Where again, your outlook on life, or again, who you think you are, can fluctuate over time. And again, clearly, there's one example right there. But it's something that, again, can parents make that decision for you, again, as you're under that? And again, for you, if you agree with that, if you are under 18, for me personally, I don't think that's something right. And again, I as much as I don't want to be for a bill that is kind of getting put forward by Anthony Bouchard, but it's something that I get where he's coming from. That, again, this could be a dangerous slope where, again, it is something that you are seeing those cases, and it's not an everywhere, or, again, a majority example, but you are seeing those where, again, folks are getting that transition done at a young age and ultimately are regretting it, or, again, you're starting to see that kind of suicide rate jump up in the LGBTQ plus community that, again, have that regrets, and, again, that crisis with identity kind of takes a mental toll on.
Well, and again, I think it's like when you go to, I'll use Loaf and Jug, for example. You go there to get a pack of cigarettes. Well, you have to be a certain age to get a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Or you go to a liquor store. You have to be a certain age to obtain liquor. When you're a teenager or a grade schooler, man, I just can't fathom all of this right now. And parents even thinking about taking their son or daughter in for that transition treatment is absolutely nuts. So where I agree with you, when the young man or young woman is an adult at age 18, then it's leave it to their choice. It's their choice whether they want to do that or not. I mean, even having parents going that route while the kid is a teen, they're absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry,
I don't want to
Nick.
go that far.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous
statement by you, but
I think a parent making that decision for their child, that's absolutely ridiculous.
I think, again, if the child expressed that, again, it's more so on a parent's concern of, okay, I want to give what's best for my child. I get that aspect where, again, it's more so if your child voices that and you want the best for your child and you want to make sure that they're happy in their body, and again, if they think they're this way or that way, again, you're trying to achieve that child's happiness, and again, hopefully it betters them as they move on through life. I get that, but again, it is that issue of, again, the age range where, again, teenage, again, the hormones, and again, there's, again, all of us were a lot different in 16 to where we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s. Again, it's something that, again, your mind does kind of process things in a different way. And again, could be a rash decision as a child. Again, the bill, I get, will it move forward? That's kind of the question mark right now. Again, it will definitely get a lot of eyes and looks here in the state of Wyoming. Again, a lot of Bouchard, at least supporters, obviously, will go for this. But again, Bouchard has kind of made a name for himself within the legislature of, do I really want to sponsor or go for a bill that's backed by this guy who's
it's a bill
kind of on that fringe of the extreme?
It's a bill that makes sense. I'm sorry. And again, I
get it. And again, it's that tough kind of tug and pull with myself, again, of we're so anti-government involvement, but again, with the age, that is the concerning thing. Same with the underage marriage act that, again, Representative Zwonitzer is putting forward, and again, trying to get that enacted here in the state of Wyoming. I get it. Where, again, underage marriage, a little suspect to me. But also too, again, it's something where, again, should the government really tell you who again, kind of with the same-sex marriage, who's the government to tell you who you can or can't marry?
But also, too, though, you go back to that underage, and maybe they don't get married. A 20-year-old guy is dating a 13-year-old girl. Hey,
I got an issue with it, but yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have to end up registering as he could be a possible sex offender. I mean, his life is going to change, or her life is going to change, because of that type of damage. So, boy, there's just so many different scenarios that go around in my mind about this stuff. But I want to go back to Senator Bouchard's bill, where it's a bill that makes sense. That's all my opinion, and it's backed
for a drastic,
and it's backed by the person
for a
who
drastic
had the problem.
surgery that is, and again, it is again, plain and simple, it is life altering. Again, it changes who you are, your identity, without a doubt. Again, with whatever process and whatever, again, as we talk hormones, we talk, again, trying to get you into the comfortability within your own body and how you identify yourself. It does seem very drastic for, again, underage, for a 13-year-old, for a 14-year-old, for all the way up until 18. I think it is something where, again, your body, and again, it's a biological, again, it's something we're taught as we go through school. Again, as we are taught in biology class in high school of, again, your body at that time is going through a lot of transformation. It is concerning of, are you doing too much damage of a life-altering surgery? And again, doing it to a minor that, at that point in time, brain's not fully developed, could be getting the wrong decision. It does bring up that concern without a doubt.
Well, you made a point there too, where it's being taught in school, but again, it should be neutral. It shouldn't be, I think this is going to happen, or I recommend this. I think the problem that we have, it shouldn't be in school. That's my opinion. But the second
at all
about transitioning or gender. I mean, you're, again...
I mean, that's how you learn, again, let's look at sex education. And whatnot.
Yeah, you look at...
something that, again, we did...
Here's male, here's female.
There you go.
And again, if you disagree
Are you trying to say, again, that's why I'm asking to get clarification. Are you saying we're supposed to eliminate this altogether in school?
No.
From the high school level and junior high, where, again, I go back to where, again, within this school district, again, over at Johnson Junior High, I think even as early as 6th grade over at Bain Elementary, we learned kind of a basic sex education at that time.
You learned sex education. Did you learn gay? Did you learn LGBTQ? Did you learn any of that stuff? LGBTQ?
Obviously not, because again, it was not of what is the time back in the day. Again, that stuff existed, but again, this is a unique situation where, again, should this be, again, this is more so education of, again, should this be taught in elementary level, again, 5th grade on down to kindergarten? Hell no, absolutely not. It's something that it should be addressed in some way, or at least, again, there's got to be resources, because, again, obviously this is a hotbed issue that is growing across this country that, again, needs to be addressed, and it's something that resource for those who may not be comfortable as what they identify, want to make that transition, maybe it is probably a good, at least, situation that maybe information could be useful.
Well, and again, too,
I'm not saying you got to break or say, again, it's something, give both sides of the story, but it's something of maybe there is some sort of education or information about this. So, again, those folks who are thinking about it, all right, here's what could happen. Here's, again, the biological, examples and what could happen, or, again, here's the scientific fact. And I think that's more so, again, go away from opinion and go more on fact. Should there be, again, education where, again, this is what is happening in this decade. This is what's happening currently in 2023. Should there be education on it? Yes.
Well,
I think so.
I think the first education is don't go social media on it, because I think that's...
Well, yeah, and again, that's what I'm saying. Get away from the opinions. Go on to what is, facts, whether it's from the FDA, from, again, doctors, from Surgeon General, whatever it may be. Again, it's something that get those facts out, that educative, and again, it could deter, it could encourage, but again, as long as those folks, again, those minors, again, who are thinking about it, and if it's going to be that legality, or at least as a legal thing right now, where, again, you can see those teenagers transitioning or getting that elective surgery, maybe it is helpful to, again, let them know of, okay, if you're going to do this, or what could happen if you do, what happens biologically to your body. I think that could be beneficial. I see no issue with that, because, again, it could deter some of those folks and go, ooh, that could be, I don't know if I want to put my body through that as I am currently growing. Again, this is just as things stand right now, where, again, this act has not been passed here in the state, where, again, it can be, still a legality, or at least, again, if you have to take your child to another state, or who knows on kind of the ethical at least situation. But, again, I think there's nothing wrong with educating on a junior high or high school level to say, hey, here's what could happen.
But keep it out of
here's
the
the different biological. Here's what's kind of going on inside. Here's what comes from the surgery, and again, what.
But again, you're going to agree with me. Keep it out of the grade schools. Let the kids actually be.
Yeah,
kids.
grade school. I think, again, sex education, again, where I think the earliest that I recollect was, again, in 6th grade over at Bain. I think,
or 7th grade. Yeah. So, all right. you know.
Yeah, kindergartners. Yeah, with that,
I
should not be
have
wondering.
my own personal opinion, but like I said, let kids be kids. Gosh, I mean, they shouldn't even be thinking about stuff like this when they're 8, 9, 10
Yeah, but
years
again,
old.
kids,
And
I see it as
influencing their
kids have rights too, and again, kids can express their opinions and again have wants and feelings. But yeah, again, it does kind of toe the line of again parents enabling that or again enacting that for again a minor. That's kind of where I have the issue. But again, it's something where why should the government tell you what you can or can't do?
All right, we're going to wrap up our program on that note, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow with the Pro Show. Yours truly and Nick Proetti will talk sports. A lot of
high school
sports to talk about.
We'll recap again games that we had Friday and Saturday. Friday again, Cheyenne East versus South. We'll recap those contests. I'll talk about Pine and Burns, the battle of Laramie County, which in the girls' contest was pretty thrilling. Boys, we kind of had a feeling it was going to be the Hornets. Again, Hornets picking up their conference win against the Burns Bronx. They're live in Burns, Wyoming. We will, speaking of which, again, regarding that boys program with the Pine Bluffs Hornets, we will talk with head coach Tyler Kimsey about his team and about that victory. We'll have in studio, I do believe at the 11 o'clock hour, we'll have Cheyenne Central AD Chad Whitworth in. As we had Jerry Schlabs in, we'll have Chad in. We'll eventually get Wendy Johnson in. And then we'll look at our county ADs with Barry Ward and also, too, with Will Gray to get their updates on, again, kind of the mid-season between fall and springtime sports. Again, kind of give their athletic take. But, again, for tomorrow, we'll have Chad Whitworth in to talk Central High athletics and probably get into a lot of basketball talk with him.
All right, that's going to wrap up our program. KRAE Reports, a week in review, again, being aired once again, coming up at 4 o'clock. Yeah, being aired again at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So for Nick Proetti, I'm Larry Proetti. We return to regular